Hi, I'm here with Kevin today. We are going to talk about his recent expedition on Mount Denali in Alaska, previously known as Mount McKinley. It's unlike anything he's ever experienced before. But just to give you some backdrop, I mean, certainly his passion is mountain climbing, and he started doing this about 15 years ago. He has successfully summited three of the world's seven summits as they are known. That is the highest mountains in each of the seven continents, including Mount Denali back in 2015. But we're going to focus on his 2023 expedition now. And just as a way to give you a summary here, uh, the way the trip works is that you have to plan for approximately 3 weeks total. It certainly is in winter conditions. You end up meeting guides within uh, Anchorage, Alaska. You take a shuttle to the village or the town of Talkeetna. It's about 2 hours away. You end up taking a small plane to the base camp on the mountain, which is just over 7,000 feet. That is the only way for climbers to get on and off the mountain. Then you end up carrying your gear in backpacks and pulling sleds as well. You're doing that up the mountain. You're setting up camps at various altitudes throughout the journey. At some point, you try for the summit, which is over 20,300 feet. And then you have to come back down, of course, and bring all your gear and left supplies along back. And you get in that plane, you get back to Talkeetna, back to Anchorage, or whatever it is you want to be going. So today, Kevin, with this trip, I know that weather played a role. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, for sure. Weather is always going to be one of many key elements when it comes to climbing a mountain. This year, weather happened to be the key element to climbing the mountain. A lot of weather issues we had. I kind of experience or kind of compare it to like a traditional Minnesota winter. I mean, we had tons of snow. I think we had somewhere around 4 or 5 feet of snow when we were on the mountain. Lots of wind, typically sustained winds, 20, 30 miles an hour, gusts 45, 50 miles an hour. Temperatures clearly in the below zero. We were consistently 20, 30, below zero, throw some wind chills on there. So it was the key determinant this year. In past years, if you could have beautiful temperatures, you could have perfect weather conditions, and the average climber could summit Denali. This year, due to the weather, very few people were actually able to summit. Even the strongest climbers couldn't make it because of consistent whiteout, consistent temperatures we had. We were delayed 4 days by the time we got to the mountain because we couldn't advance up the glacier because of whiteout conditions. The first stretch is going up the Kahiltna, and it's all glaciers, or I'm sorry, crevasses. So going through a section with a lot of crevasses, whiteout conditions are not ideal for passing through successfully. We got into 11,000. We were delayed on our summit bid day. Woke up to Bluebird Day, beautiful temperatures, calm. Got a couple hours up, halfway up, about 18,600 feet, kind of to that summit plateau area. And Mother Nature said, not today. So she came out with a fury of high winds, whiteout conditions, snow. Forced us to turn around and then make our way back. So yeah, we did not successfully summit, 100% due to temperatures and weather this year.
And I know, people have asked me, well, don't they have the chance to summit again? And I know in this case, you really didn't. One, because you were already behind schedule with all the delays. And two, the weather wasn't showing any signs of changing. So I know you came back down, but then I also know those delays created a little bit of a food situation. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, coming back down, we ran into there's an interesting area coming down the mountain. We call them areas of severe consequences. The consequences with this section really was you're going downhill, you're carrying heavy packs, you have a sled in front of you, you're trying to control. It's all ice, and the severe consequences in this section was there's a runoff. You go past the runoff, you fall down about a 2,000-foot drop to a glacier below you. And when we were coming down this area, we ran into a lot of wind that was pushing us at our back. So not only were we going downhill, heavy packs, sleds in front of us that were heavy, kind of a steep decline. We had, those 40, 45 mile an hour gusts of winds that were pushing us. One of the climbers didn't do a good job of securing their gear on the sled. So the wind picked up a duffel bag, threw the duffel bag down the glacier. That had a couple days worth of supply of food. So by the time we made it down the mountain, made it down to the airstrip, weather delayed us another 4 days. We pretty much ran out of food. So we got to a point, because we lost a couple of days of food on the glacier through that process, we had to start rationing out ramen noodles. So ramen noodles became our one package of ramen noodles. Not only was our breakfast, but also the spice pack, which we would throw in a thermos, would also be our broth lunch for us. So we ended up running out of food because of the issues that took place.
Okay, and so I imagine when you got off the mountain, you certainly indulged in ample food, or what was that like?
So 24 days on the mountain without a shower is an interesting scenario. I think I was in the exact same clothes the entire time. And I had an option. We flew off the mountain. I had an hour and a half. I could choose to shower or eat food. Different people might choose different options. I went with the food versus the shower. I figured out I could get a shower somewhere else at some other time, but we chose food, and we ate a lot of food. There was 4 of us. I think we had like $250 worth of food, like 3 different entrees each, just because we were so hungry.
Certainly understandable. I know too, with the weather, not only did food become a problem at the end, but with weather playing such a huge role throughout the trip. I mean, was this trip more risky or more dangerous than past trips that you've been on?
Yeah, the weather, the wind gusts were what was becoming problematic. Um, Denali, like a lot of mountains, already have its, like I said, areas of severe consequences, and you really manage through those areas by having different lines of defense. Sometimes you have repetitive, safety gears in place. This year, you would try and rely upon those, but really having the strong winds, having the the weather that was just so problematic, having all of the snow that was being dumped on us, it covered up a lot of those areas of severe consequences, like crevasses. Typically, what a snow will do, it'll come in and it'll fill the gap between the ice. You always have a certain amount of space between one edge of the crevasse and the other edge. It could be 2 inches wide. It could be 10 feet wide. We saw crevasses that were 10, 12 feet wide. And snow would come in and fill that in. It'd be called a snow bridge. In good conditions, in cold conditions, you could cross over those snow bridges and with no problems. This year, with all the snow, and then we started having some warming temperatures and freezing cold, at times it made those snow bridges unstable. So one day you would pass over a section, totally fine. The next day you pass over it, not fine. Ultimately, I ended up falling in 2 different crevasses through the process, just because of the unstable nature that we were dealing with within the mountains.
How do you deal with that? You just fall straight in like quicksand?
Hopefully it's a narrow crevasse, so you can actually not fall too far. One of them, fortunately, my shoulder's a little bit wider than my waist, and I was able to stick out my arms to stop me from falling even farther. But typically you're on a rope team. Your rope team is there to help support you if someone does fall in. The first time that I did fall in one of the crevasses, the unfortunate part is we were on this tricky hill. It was all ice that we were on, and we were in high winds. So my rope team was already dealing with a lot of issues. So it was up to me really just to pull myself out, get myself stabilized, so that the rest of the team could actually focus in on dealing with the issues they were dealing with.
Well, and this will probably be my last question here, but I think at one point, speaking of being roped in with people, wasn't there some risk, with people stumbling, or, isn't there the potential to just have everybody fall off the mountain? I mean, literally?
Yeah, there's one of our lines of defenses, and actually part of an example is something called a crampon. Most people really don't know what a crampon is, but this is probably our key component that we deal with, our key defense that we deal with. A crampon attaches to your boot. I'll try and show this to you. It's these spikes. They attach to your boot. So when you're walking down your ice, this is what's actually gripping you. You're pushing this into the ice. It's actually what's keeping you on the mountain. It's without your crampon, it becomes really problematic. We had a climber who, in this tricky area, lost his crampon. And when he lost his crampon, it puts a lot of stress then on the rest of the team members. Unfortunately, he started to come into a slide. We were able to stabilize him, but we had a lot of wind we were dealing with, and we were there for about 20 minutes. And you're relying on your crampons to save you at that point in time. If someone had fallen, if I had fallen, if someone else had stumbled, we would have certainly gone into a slide, and it would have taken us all off the glacier. That like I said, at that point, the severe consequence was a 2,000-foot drop. So we did run into scenarios where one of our climbers did lose a crampon, and it created a lot of problems for us. But that's why we have a rope team. That's why you have crampons. And, fortunately, we were to manage through that process and get ourselves into a safe area.
Well, and obviously you're here to tell the stories, yes. But certainly this trip was just riddled with all sorts of challenges, dangers, risks. Well, we appreciate you sharing your stories. And, I know you're very happy to talk more with anyone who wants to talk more. Kevin's passion is mountain climbing, as I mentioned. He will talk to anybody about this.
Absolutely.
So thanks for sharing your stories. Great.
You have a good afternoon. Bye.